From pro players' worst nightmares becoming reality, to fans completely humiliating themselves, these are the 25 most embarrassing golf moments ever recorded. And first we start with Phil Mickelson, a legend of the game who suddenly found himself counting into double digits on a single hole. The year was 2021 at the Valero Texas Open. Now, Phil's known for his gambling style of play. Sometimes it pays off spectacularly, and sometimes, well, you're about to find out. That day was a beautiful day in San Antonio, Texas. Mickelson standing on the 18th tee, just 2 over par for his round. Not great, but not terrible either. He steps up and absolutely bombs his drive 306 yards right down the middle of the fairway. Perfect position. The gallery's thinking, classic Phil, he's going to make something happen here. But then, everything started unraveling. And when I say unraveling, I mean it was like watching someone try to juggle while riding a unicycle on a tightrope during a hurricane. His second shot? Water. His next attempt? More trouble. Before anyone knew what was happening, golf's greatest showman was putting on a very different kind of show. 1 stroke became 3, became 5, became 7. And finally, in a moment that had statisticians scrambling through the record books, Mickelson tapped in for a 10. Yes, you heard that right. A 10 on a par 5. It was tied for his second highest score ever on the PGA Tour. The crowd fell silent. The commentators were practically speechless. And somewhere, a scorecard was crying. But wait until you hear about number 24. Because in 2021, Billy Horschel gave us not 1, but 2 moments that had golf purists clutching their pearls at the sacred grounds of Augusta National. The Masters tournament is golf's equivalent of a black tie dinner. Everything's supposed to be proper, pristine, and perfect. Well, somebody forgot to tell Billy that. It started on the 7th hole during the 3rd round. Horschel, clearly frustrated with his play, decided his golf bag needed a bit of percussion practice. The cameras caught him repeatedly slamming his wedge into his bag, with the kind of fury usually reserved for drummers in heavy metal bands. But that was just the opening act. Later in the tournament, Horschel found himself facing a shot from the famous Rays Creek on the 13th hole. Now, most players would take their medicine and a penalty drop. Not Billy. He decided to channel his inner Creek warrior, taking off his shoes and socks, rolling up his pristine white pants, and wading in. What happened next? Well, let's just say that Augusta National's slopes are slippery when wet. Down he went, creating a moment that instantly went viral and had the golf gods shaking their heads in disbelief. Moving on to number 23, we're traveling back to 2010 to one of the most pressure-packed situations in golf, the Ryder Cup. Hunter Mahan stood on the 17th hole at Celtic Manor, the hopes of an entire nation resting on his shoulders. The United States needed him to win this match to complete one of the greatest comebacks in Ryder Cup history. The tension was unbearable. Hunter needed to get up and down from just off the green, a shot he'd probably pulled off thousands of times in his career. But this wasn't just any old up and down. This was for Ryder Cup immortality. He settled over the ball, took his stance, and, well, let's just say what happened next probably still gives him nightmares. His chip shot barely left the ground, traveling about as far as a 3-year-old's putt on a mini golf course, leaving him with a long par putt to keep the match alive. Now Hunter is feeling it. The pressure is at its peak, and that chunked chip shot didn't give him the confidence he needed there. He takes his stroke and misses. The European crowd turned into chaos. And Hunter? Hunter looked like he wanted to disappear forever. All right, coming in at number 22 on the list of golf's most embarrassing moments. It's 1999, and Bay Hill's par 4 17th hole isn't exactly known for its water hazards, until Davis Love showed up. Love had found himself trapped in a greenside bunker, staring down a tough shot. No problem for a pro like him, right? He took his stance, opened the club face, and splashed the ball out with a crisp wedge shot. But instead of landing soft, the ball took off like it was late for a flight, sailing way past the hole into the fringe on the other side. That bunker shot was supposed to set up a par save, but now he was staring at an even worse situation. And that's when all hell broke loose. Visibly frustrated, he went to tap down the sand with his wedge, but instead, he clipped a sprinkler head. Within seconds, water started gushing out of the broken sprinkler like a busted fire hydrant. The green? Flooded. The bunker? Drowned. Davis stood there, completely embarrassed, watching as the hole turned into a small lake. But wait for it, here comes the best part. After the chaos settled, Davis composed himself and still managed to make par. However, no one remembers the score that day. All we remember is his most embarrassing moment, turning a sprinkler into a fountain, all captured on live television. Next up, number 21. And trust me, this one's unforgettable. So, Bubba Watson had the lead in the final round at the 2013 Travelers Championship. He's standing on the par 3 16th hole with everything in his hands. All he had to do was keep calm and play smart. So what did you do? Well, Bubba pulled out a 9-iron, took his swing, and watched in horror as his ball sailed right into the water. But that's when things got really embarrassing. Instead of owning the mistake, Bubba immediately turned on his caddy, Ted Scott, snapping, "So you're telling me that's the right club?" Scott didn't even respond. He just stood there, probably wishing he could disappear. With tension sky high, Bubba had to take a drop, then hit his next shot over the green. By the time he finally holed out, he had made a triple bogey, throwing away his lead in a matter of minutes. Bubba never recovered. A bogey on the next hole sealed his fate, and instead of lifting the trophy, he walked off in tied for fourth, empty-handed and visibly fuming. The cringiest part, blaming his own caddy on live TV, turning an already brutal meltdown into one of the most embarrassing moments in golf history. But that's nothing compared to number 20, when CBS broadcaster Gary McCord learned the hard way that at Augusta National, some things are better left unsaid. See, if the Masters tournament is golf's equivalent of a black-tie dinner, the Augusta National Golf Club is the Royal Palace, where tradition reigns supreme and every word spoken is expected to match the prestige of the green jacket itself. But in 1994, Gary McCord maybe didn't know that. It started during a late afternoon broadcast. McCord was in the booth, doing his usual colorful commentary, when he spotted an advertisement in a magazine during a commercial break. It was for the Golden Door Spa, listing various treatments, including, of all things, bikini waxes. This gave him an idea for what he thought would be a clever description of Augusta's notoriously slick greens. He said they were so fast, they looked like they'd been bikini waxed. Innocent enough, right? Wrong. The members at Augusta National Golf Club were not amused. But wait, it gets better. He then referred to the mounds behind one of the greens as body bags. That was the final straw. The next thing McCord knew, he was persona non grata at golf's most prestigious event. Banned. Exiled. Never to return to the Masters broadcast booth again. All because of a bikini wax reference and some body bags. That was a tough crowd. For number 19, we're heading to the 2014 Ryder Cup at Glen Eagles, where Patrick Reed turned himself into golf's most daring villain. The story begins on the first tee, where the European crowd was already giving the American rookie a not-so-warm Scottish welcome. "Did you practice your putting stroke, Patrick?" one fan shouted, mocking him for a crucial missed putt from the day before. Now, most first-time Ryder Cup players would have ducked their heads and tried to let their golf do the talking. But Reed? He had other plans. After draining a crucial putt, he didn't just pump his fist or tip his cap. No. He looked straight at the hostile crowd, raised his finger to his lips, and shushed them. The reaction was explosive. The European fans, who already weren't exactly in Reed's fan club, responded with even louder heckling. It was a bold strategy, and it definitely made for some entertaining television. From one cocky, embarrassing player to the other. But this one is even worse. Here we are at number 18. But before we move on, please help me reach my goal of 20,000 subs before my birthday in March. I really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. All right, let's move on. If there's one thing Brooks Koepka doesn't lack, it's confidence. Heading into the final round of the 2020 PGA Championship, he let the world know exactly how he felt. Sitting just 2 shots off the lead, Koepka took a moment to subtly throw shade at his competitors, especially Dustin Johnson, pointing out that DJ had only 1 major win compared to Koepka's 4. Translation? I've been here before, these guys haven't. Bold move. Too bold. Because when Sunday rolled around, Brooks' game completely fell apart. Instead of making a charge, he imploded, shooting a brutal 4 over 74, one of the worst scores of the day. Bogeys, missed putts, bad swings, everything that could go wrong did. Meanwhile, Colin Morikawa, one of the young players Brooks had seemingly dismissed, put on an absolute masterclass, closing with a stunning final round 64 to claim his first ever major title. Brooks, he didn't just lose, he tumbled all the way down to tied for 29th. That's right, 29th. Imagine the walk of shame to the clubhouse. Absolutely embarrassing. Moral of the story? If you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. Because in golf, the only thing worse than losing is losing after you trash talk. Coming in at number 17, and here we have what might be one of the greatest putters to ever play the game. This man could drain a 20-footer with his eyes closed. But on one fateful day in 1979, the golf gods decided to humble him in the most brutal way possible. We're talking about Ben Crenshaw. It was the Western Open at Butler National, and Crenshaw stepped onto the 5th green in his first round with a routine 15-foot putt for birdie, a putt he had probably made 1,000 times before. He lined it up, took his signature smooth stroke, and missed. No big deal, right? He had a tap in for par. Except, he missed that one too. Now he had a short bogey putt left, and guess what? He missed that one as well. Panic set in. Crenshaw's putting stroke, normally as pure as a symphony, completely deserted him. One miss turned into two, two turned into three, and suddenly, the unthinkable happened. By the time the ball finally dropped on his 7th putt, the damage was done. A quadruple bogey 8, an entry in the record books for one of the worst putting performances in PGA Tour history, and a moment that would haunt him forever. And the worst part? Crenshaw was so furious that he didn't even bother finishing the round. After just 9 holes, he stormed off the course and withdrew from the tournament. A putting genius, taken down by a single green. Now at number 16, we've got Hudson Swafford, and a moment so bizarre it left everyone scratching their heads. It happened during the 2013 Nationwide Children's Hospital Championship on the Corn Ferry Tour. Swafford was in the fairway, preparing for his next shot. Nothing unusual, just a routine practice swing to loosen up. But then, the unexpected happened. As Swafford took his practice swing, he carved out a hefty divot. No big deal, right? Except this divot had a mind of its own. It flew forward and struck his golf ball, causing it to move down the fairway. For a moment, Swafford just stood there, probably thinking, did that really just happen? Yep, it did, Swafford. But here comes the worst part. Hudson was left dealing with one of the most unusual penalties in golf. According to the rules, if a player's actions cause the ball to move, even accidentally, they incur a 1-stroke penalty and must replace the ball to its original position. So not only did Swafford have to swallow the embarrassment of the mishap, but he also had to take a penalty for a practice swing gone horribly wrong. Next up, number 15. Here we're diving into what might be the most embarrassing press conference in golf history. The 2014 Ryder Cup had just ended. Team USA had lost. Again, and Phil Mickelson decided it was time to air some dirty laundry. The only problem? The team captain, Tom Watson, was sitting right there. You could feel the tension brewing in that media room. Reporters were squirming in their seats. Other players were studying their shoes like they held the secrets to the universe. And there was Phil, calmly and methodically throwing his captain under the bus, over the bus, and then backing the bus up again. When asked about past Ryder Cup successes, Mickelson didn't hold back. Instead of dodging the question, he praised Paul Azinger's 2008 captaincy, the last time Team USA had won, saying, "We had a great formula in 2008. I don't know why we strayed from it." Oof, that was direct, but he wasn't done. Mickelson continued, pointing out how Azinger had empowered players, given them a voice, and built an environment where they could thrive. The unspoken message? Tom Watson did the complete opposite. And Watson? He just sat there, arms crossed, face stone cold, not a single word in response. Even Phil's teammates looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. It was the golf equivalent of watching your parents fight at Thanksgiving dinner. Uncomfortable, unavoidable, and impossible to look away from. Now at number 14, we've got Jon Rahm, and a moment so embarrassing it could haunt his highlight reel forever. It happened at the 2022 Arnold Palmer Invitational on the par 3 7th hole. Nothing crazy, just a routine cleanup job. But then, the unthinkable happened. Rahm had already done the hard part, getting his ball onto the green. Now he was left with a 10-inch putt for par. Not 10 feet, not even 3 feet. 10 inches. The kind of putt you don't even think about. The kind of putt your grandma drains with a shaky old putter. Rahm steps up, barely even setting his feet. He gives the ball the softest tap imaginable. And then, it stops short. From 10 inches, the ball stops short. No one believes what just happened. Rahm just stands there staring at the ball like it personally betrayed him. He quickly taps in on the next stroke, but by then, it's too late. The damage is done. His whiff of a putt is already immortalized as one of the most humiliating moments in golf history. For number 13, we're traveling back to 1987, when Craig Stadler learned that sometimes trying to keep your pants clean can cost you a lot more than a dry cleaning bill. It was the San Diego Open at Torrey Pines, and Stadler found himself in a pickle. His ball was under a tree, forcing him to kneel down to make the shot. Now, being the practical fellow that he was, Stadler didn't want to get his white pants dirty. So he did what any sensible person would do. He put a towel down to kneel on. Seems reasonable, right? Well, the rules of golf had other ideas. Little did Stadler know that this simple act of cleanliness would come back to haunt him. A TV viewer, yes, a person watching from their couch actually called in to report that Stadler had violated Rule 13-3, which prohibits building a stance. By the time officials reviewed the footage, Stadler had already signed his scorecard without including the two-stroke penalty. The result? Disqualification. Over a towel. A towel. Stadler had finished tied for second place, which would have earned him $37,000. Instead, he got nothing, except maybe the cleanest pants in professional golf history. Coming in at number 12, and this one takes us to the 2020 US Open at Winged Foot, where Danny Lee gave us a putting performance that made Ben Crenshaw's 7-putt look almost reasonable. Lee was facing a 4-foot putt for par on the 18th green. Simple enough, right? Wrong. What followed was like watching a horror movie in slow motion. Miss again, and, well, you get the picture. 6 putts later, yes, 6, Lee finally holed out for a quintuple bogey 9, but the drama wasn't over. In a moment of pure frustration that resonated with every weekend golfer who's ever 3-putted from 2 feet, Lee proceeded to slam his putter into his bag with the kind of force usually reserved for heavyweight boxing matches. Then, adding insult to injury, or perhaps injury to insult, he withdrew from the tournament citing a wrist injury. I wonder how that happened. Up next, number 11, and this one gave us one of the most heartbreaking and embarrassing images in golf history. The 1996 Masters was supposed to be Greg Norman's redemption. After years of Augusta heartbreak, he finally had a 6-shot lead heading into Sunday. A comfortable cushion. Or at least, it should have been. But Augusta doesn't do mercy. Shot by shot, the lead crumbled. Bogeys piled up. Nick Faldo kept the pressure on. And Norman, once fearless and aggressive, looked completely lost. And then came the moment of truth, the moment we all have etched in our heads. The 15th hole. Norman still had a chance. A clutch eagle chip here could swing the momentum, could stop the bleeding, could maybe, just maybe, salvage something from this sinking ship. He took his stance, struck the ball, and watched it slide past the hole. That was it. Something inside him just broke. He dropped to his knees in pure agony. Then, in a gesture of complete surrender, he lay back on Augusta's perfectly manicured turf, arms splayed out, staring up at the Georgia pines. An iconic image for the world, but for Norman, probably the most embarrassing moment of his career. By the time Norman tapped in his final putt, Faldo had turned that 6-shot deficit into a 5-shot victory. And here we are at number 10. Not every unforgettable blunder at the Masters comes from a player. In 2019, a security guard at Augusta National became an accidental star, and not for the best reasons. The incident took place on the 14th hole, a critical point in Tiger Woods' round as he was making his way out of the trees on the left side of the fairway. Woods, having just nailed an impressive shot, was moving along, fully in the zone. But then the unexpected happened. The guard, intending to protect Woods from an enthusiastic crowd, rushed to hold fans back and accidentally slipped on the damp grass. What was supposed to be a quick block turned into a dramatic slide straight toward Woods, his foot nearly colliding with one of the world's most famous golfers. In the heat of the moment, fans could barely believe what they were witnessing. Imagine a crunching tackle more suited to soccer than a golf green. Vinnie Jones himself would have probably given an approving nod to the guard's unintentional move. And let's not forget the split-second horror as people held their breath, hoping the legend wouldn't get hurt. Luckily, Woods emerged unscathed, only needing a moment to shake off the surprise. As the guard awkwardly recovered, Woods simply got back to business and went on to win the Masters that year. Looks like that guard's best save of the day was not injuring Tiger. Too bad not everyone has that amount of luck. Which brings us to number 9. For a player at the top of their game, nothing's more deflating than watching a single hole unravel the entire round. That's exactly what happened to world number 1 Nelly Korda during the opening round of the US Women's Open in May 2024. Standing on the par 3 12th hole at Lancaster Country Club, she takes her stance, swings confidently, and sends the ball flying toward the green. But instead of finding safe ground, her tee shot lands smack in the bunker. No big deal, right? A quick up and down should do it. Yet, as she approaches her next shot, it's clear the bunker's got other plans. Her escape shot doesn't quite make it, setting her up for a tougher attempt. And then, as if on cue, the real trouble begins. Her ball finds the water hazard. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, with each splash marking a descent into golf agony. Stroke by stroke, Korda's score climbs painfully higher until, unbelievably, she taps in for a brutal 10 on a single par 3 hole. Watching the top-ranked player struggle so much on one hole was a shock for fans and fellow players alike, and it placed her a painful 12 shots behind the leader for that round. Her final score of 80 was an uncharacteristic number for Korda, who's known for her steady, powerful game. Guess that's one way to make a splash, just maybe not the one Korda had in mind. From one nightmare to another, here's number 8 on the list. Just a year after his incredible 2019 Masters victory, Tiger Woods returned to Augusta in 2020. But this time, he faced a moment that no one, especially not a 5-time Masters champion, could have expected. Here's what happened. It was the infamous 12th hole, right in the heart of Amen Corner, a stretch that has crushed many Masters' dreams. As Woods lined up his shot, Rae's Creek waited ominously in front, almost daring him to take it on. He took his swing, and the ball drifted left, landing straight in the water. A mistake, but one he could recover from. Woods reset for his next shot, determined to put it behind him. But shockingly, his ball found the creek again. A third attempt? Same outcome. 3 times in a row. Woods watched as his ball plunged into the creek's magnetic pull, with each splash amplifying the tension among fans and broadcasters. On his 4th attempt, Woods finally cleared the creek, only for his ball to find the bunker. After a tricky escape from the sand, he finally got onto the green, but only after 8 strokes. A couple of putts later, he walked off the 12th with a 10, his highest single-hole score in Masters history. Amen Corner doesn't play favorites. Even Tiger wasn't safe from its curse that day, coming in with lucky number 7. So, in the world of golf, you expect to see a lot of wild swings and emotional ups and downs, but rarely do you expect an actual bird, or, in this case, a birdman, to show up mid-game. This unusual scene unfolded during the 2012 US Open, when Webb Simpson was just about to secure his victory. Out of nowhere, a fan dressed in a strange bird costume suddenly rushed onto the green. With his wings flapping and an odd costume meant to resemble a bird, this intruder made quite an impression, interrupting the prestigious event with his strange antics. As the Birdman flapped his wings and pranced around on the green, the crowd didn't quite know how to react. Security, on the other hand, moved quickly, tackling the fan and removing him from the scene. Webb Simpson, known for his calm and friendly demeanor, handled the situation with humor. As the Birdman was taken away, Simpson couldn't resist cracking a joke. "Enjoy the jail cell, pal." With that one-liner, Simpson sealed the moment as an unforgettable bit of US Open history. In a sport where quiet focus is key, this random dash of comedy was like a breath of fresh air. Or should we say, a bird in the bunker? Next up, number 6. The Masters is known for testing the nerves of even the greatest golfers, but in 2016, Ernie Els faced a nightmare that no golfer could prepare for. A moment so surreal it felt like Augusta itself was out to get him. It was the very first hole of his round, usually a time for setting the tone and finding a rhythm. Els, a seasoned veteran with major titles under his belt, approached the green with confidence, ready to open his tournament on the right foot. But then, something unusual happened. He lined up his putt, likely visualizing an easy start. But as his putter made contact, something felt off. His ball rolled toward the hole, only to veer just wide. Surprised but undeterred, he set up again, expecting a simple tap-in. Yet the ball missed again, and again. Each attempt seemed to defy him more, turning a straightforward putt into a slow-motion disaster. By the time he finally sank the putt, Els had taken an unthinkable 6 strokes just a hole out, recording a painful 10 on that opening par 4. A brutal sight for fans, as the dreaded yips seemed to grip him in front of Augusta's quiet, watching crowd. Moral of the story? When the yips show up, even a champion like Ernie is in for a wild ride. Moving on to number 5, and we're at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. The one tournament where golf meets a party and where rowdy fans can become just as famous as the players themselves. But in 2018, one fan took it to a whole new level. Jordan Spieth, known for his razor-sharp focus, was lining up his shot, shutting out the typical cheers and buzz around the Phoenix Open's infamous 16th hole. But then, out of nowhere, one fan, clearly deep into the party part of the event, started heckling, his slurred shouts loud enough to break Spieth's concentration. As Spieth settled into his backswing, the fan's drunken voice grew louder and more obnoxious, stumbling into a territory that was less cheering and more cringeworthy. The heckling became so relentless that security finally had to step in, escorting the very intoxicated fan out as he staggered, shouting on his way. It was a relief for Spieth and everyone around, though the fan's sloppy exit was a hard-to-miss reminder of what too far looks like, even at the Phoenix Open. And here we are at number 4. It's 2018, and Sergio Garcia, the defending Masters champion, stepped onto Augusta's 15th hole with confidence, hoping to carry on the magic from his 2017 victory. But in a matter of moments, that confidence would crumble, and his round would unravel into one of the most jaw-dropping meltdowns Augusta had ever seen. A scene so painful that fans couldn't decide whether to watch or look away. So, what the heck happened? Well, the 15th hole, known as Firethorn, is usually a chance for birdies, maybe even an eagle. But it comes with Augusta's trademark risks. Garcia's first approach shot looked good, until it spun back, trickling down the slope and plunging into the water. Frustrated but undeterred, Garcia dropped another ball, determined to make it count. He took his shot, and yet again, it hit the green, only to roll back down and splash into the hazard. Now visibly rattled, he tried a third time, then a fourth. Each time, the ball seemed cursed, stubbornly finding its way back to the water. By the 5th shot, it was no longer just frustrating. It was painful to watch. Fans around the green shifted uneasily as one of the best golfers in the world battled a hole that had turned into his worst nightmare. Finally, after 5 balls had taken the same watery fate, Garcia managed to land one safely on the green. But by then, the damage was done. A series of agonizing putts later, he tapped in for a staggering 13 on the hole, tying the record for the highest single-hole score in Masters history. It wasn't just a bad hole, it was a complete collapse on the very course where he had been a hero just a year earlier. Sliding into our top 3, and here we have an absolute embarrassing moment from the 2019 PGA Championship. A reminder that sometimes, it's not just the golfers who steal the show. But before we show you the top 3, please subscribe to our channel and join us in our journey to 10,000 subs before the holidays. It was a tense moment on the 16th hole at Bethpage Black, with players battling the notorious course. But suddenly, all eyes turned to the edge of the green, where one fan, clearly enjoying a few too many drinks, wobbled a bit too close to the action. He tried to steady himself, but in a clumsy misstep, he lost his balance and toppled straight into a greenside bunker. Laughter rippled through the crowd as the fan tried to climb out, only to slip and slide down. With each failed attempt, the fan's alcohol-fueled determination grew, and he continued his struggle, slipping, sliding, and trying again, much to the crowd's delight. Finally, after a few more tries and growing cheers from onlookers, security stepped in, helping him make a not-so-graceful exit from the bunker. Moving on to number 2. We're back at Augusta National, known for its challenging holes and unforgiving water hazards, but for Japanese golfer Tsuneyuki Nakajima, it became the site of one of the most famous collapses in golf history. The par 5 13th, with its notorious Rays Creek, was a challenge Nakajima aimed to conquer with a routine approach. But as his ball found the water, he faced a choice: take a penalty and move on, or try to recover his shot. Nakajima went for the latter, and that's when things went south. His first recovery attempt failed, sending the ball back into Rays Creek. Frustrated but undeterred, he tried again and again. The more he tried to free himself from the hazard, the deeper he sank into Augusta's trap. Each swing only led to more penalty strokes, and the once manageable recovery snowballed into a full-blown disaster. By the time he finally escaped Rays Creek, Nakajima had taken an excruciating 13 strokes on the hole, tying the Masters record for the worst score on a single hole. The unforgettable scene, where his persistence clashed with Augusta's brutal defenses, earned him a nickname that would haunt his career: the Sands of Nakajima. Once again, Augusta had claimed another victim, etching Nakajima's name into the history of Rays Creek forever. And finally, we're at number 1 of the most embarrassing moments in golf history. We're in 2011 and Kevin Na approached the par 4 ninth hole at the Valero Texas Open with confidence. But within minutes, he'd find himself trapped in one of the most brutal, unforgettable nightmares a golfer could face. What followed was a humiliating battle he would later call his walk of shame. So, here's what happened. Kevin approached the ninth hole, a par 4, ready to make his shot. But as his club connected with the ball, his tee shot veered wildly off course, diving into the tangled Texas rough. A small misstep, perhaps, but nothing a pro like Kevin couldn't handle. He walked up to his ball, nestled deep in the brush, determined to play his way out and move on. But as he took his next swing, things went from bad to worse. His club snagged on branches and tall grass, causing a mishit that barely nudged the ball forward. He repositioned and swung again. Another tangle in the rough, then another. Fans around the hole watched as Kevin hacked at the ball, but each shot only seemed to dig him further into trouble. You could see the frustration building on his face, but he wasn't giving up until the fateful moment when he swung at the ball, missed, and realized it was still in midair. To avoid a penalty, he had to take another swing at it, but his struggle only seemed to intensify with each shot. At this point, he'd lost track of his strokes and called his caddy over, asking for help to keep count. The crowd, normally reserved, was now murmuring and gasping, watching in disbelief as his shot count kept climbing. Even Kevin could feel the surreal nature of it, battling not just the course but also the creeping sense of helplessness as he continued to hack his way through the rough, 1 inch at a time. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Na got the ball back in play, moved it down the fairway, and made his way toward the green. But by then, the damage was catastrophic. When he finally holed out, his score on that single par 4 had soared to an unthinkable 16 strokes, the highest in Texas Open history and one of the worst ever recorded on a par 4 in PGA Tour play. Afterward, Kevin jokingly called it his walk of shame, bringing humor to an experience most would want to forget. Oh, and now you're here. We have another great video right in the middle of the screen. Enjoy!